Good afternoon. It is Thursday, May 11th, 2023. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Harlan Municipal Utilities Board of Trustees to order. Start with an approval of the agenda.
I'll mention that approval.
Second that.
Roll call.
Shelton, aye.
Michelle, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Hammer, aye.
Cyber die.
Oh, there's Nella.
What's from Vienna?
Item number 3 is per the protocols of this TFR tariff. I would like to invite you to the annual update meeting hosted by Harlan Municipal Utilities to discuss the inputs to or results of this latest TFR. I would like to encourage you to review the TFR template ahead of time and submit any informal questions. We will attempt to respond to your request prior to the annual update meeting, but this is the time for that meeting.
And we do have Ron Kennedy on the phone, and I am going to, he's going to take over control of the meeting right now.
Thanks, Jenny. I just go and see if I can share my screen yet. Are you able to see the presentation very well?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Well, the purpose of today's meeting, we're going to cover that in a second, and then talk a little bit about the background of Harlan Municipal Utilities and the formula rate, and then do a quick comparison of this year's update versus last year's results, and then open it up for any questions. So, the purpose of this meeting is Harlan, as part of as a transmission owner in Southwest Power Pool, SPP, is required to hold an annual update meeting to discuss their ATR, and that's per the protocols. The deadline to do this is in May of each year. So Harlan posted their 2023 annual transmission revenue requirement update to the SPP website on May 1st. And again, this meeting is intended to allow anyone to review and ask questions about the update. So this is a timeline, just kind of go over what's required as part of the protocols for Harlan's annual update process. Again, we had to update the ATRR for this year by May 1st, hold this annual meeting by the end of this month. By June 1st, the updated rate is going to be in SPP rates. And July 1st is the deadline for information exchange period for interested parties to serve information and document requests at Harlan. August 10th is the deadline for Harlan to respond to these requests. October 10th is the deadline for any preliminary challenges, and January 16th of 2024 this year will be the deadline for Harlan to make this informational filing at FERC. And then, beg your pardon?
No, nobody said anything on our end.
Okay, I'm sorry. And then March 1st is the deadline for formal challenges to be submitted at FERC. So just a little background, Harlan is an Iowa municipal utility located in the southwest part of Iowa. It serves a service territory in the city of Harlan with a population of about 4,800 and provides electric, gas, water, and telecommunication services to the city residents. It's governed by a 5-person board of trustees, and it owns approximately 13.5 miles of 69 kV transmission, which we refer to as the Avoca line. And that line runs from Avoca, Iowa, where it's interconnected to NIPCO by the J11 substation. And Harlan's membership agreement as a transmission owner was fully executed on July 17, 2015, and at that point, Harlan transferred functional control of its transmission facilities that are included as part of this ATR update to SPP on October 1st, 2015. And subsequently, Harlan's formula rate was approved by FERC to be in rates on October 1st, but it was approved by the Commission on September 28th. So Harlan is part of the Upper Missouri pricing zone, and it has a formula rate that's based on what's called a cash flow formula rate, and it's typically used by organizations that are financed predominantly with debt or have little no equity or proprietary capital in their capital structures. So the formula rate that Harlan uses includes transmission O&M expenses related to the transmission plant recoverable under the tariff, an allocated portion of A and G in taxes other than income taxes, an allocated portion of the annual electric utility debt service expenses, that's principal and interest every year, an allocated portion of any bond or premium discount that is included with these issuance costs, and issuance costs included with any debt that the electric utility issues, an allocated portion of a margin requirement. And Harlan was approved for a fixed margin requirement by the FERC, and that's following September 28, 2015. So just comparison of last year's update versus this year's update, it's about $36,000 less. You can see the itemized comparison. The transmission was total up about $768 from last year. Total debt service was about $19,000 less. Taxes on the $3,300 less, and the margin requirement, which is just a multiplication of 75% of the debt service. So that's why that's also less than last year. It's about $14,000. So that's the components that make up that $36,000 difference from year-over-year change. That being said, I know I went through this pretty quickly, but I know you have a lot to do tonight, so they're open up to any questions that someone might have today.
Do we have
Well,
debt?
if anyone's on the line, on the call with us, this is not the last chance to ask questions. We've included Chief Executive Officer's email there to send questions to around this update. And all the materials, including the work papers, are posted on the SPP member website with the link there is also included. So Jenny, I don't hear any questions. I'm not sure if anyone's raising their hand quietly, I can't see it.
No, I don't think anybody has any questions. Nobody's,
Actually, I do.
oh yeah, we do have a question, Ron.
Yeah, so is there a debt against the 69 line?
I don't believe there's that dedicated to an individual asset, but how the formula rate works is it takes the electric utility's total enterprise debt and it allocates a portion of it to the transmission function, if you will, based on something called a gross plant allocator, which is essentially just the gross transmission plant divided by all of the electric utility plant. That way, in the formula rate making mechanism in the Southwest Power Pool, you're not required to kind of like paint debt dollars for a particular asset. You can do it. You know, that allows for electric utility to issue debt more efficiently for the enterprise, knowing that you're going to use the funds most efficiently, and so you don't have to dedicate debt to a particular asset.
So is there a collective balance on that across the SPP, or is that balance being accrued by HMU for that debt?
I'm sorry, I kind of broke up a little bit there. I apologize. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, so my question is that the debt that goes into servicing the total utility debt, is that across SPP, or is it a itemized for HMU, or specifically the 69 line, and is there a balance associated with that? Over.
Yeah, your outstanding debt balance, I'll try to break that. There's a couple of questions in there. So this is the actual kind of calculation of the numbers we saw on that slide. And then the tabs you see, if you can see my screen, I hope you can. These are the work papers. So right now, and this is like another test, I apologize. According to your financial statements, you've got about $1.3 million right here of outstanding debt for the electric utility in Series 2017 bond. So it looks like your principal payments are nearly, I guess, take that down in 2 more years. So well, what happens is that Harlan, just like everyone else in the upper Missouri pricing zone in the Southwest Power Pool, calculates an annual transmission revenue requirement, and that goes into kind of an entire bucket. And then everybody in that pricing zone as well puts in their load in another bucket, and then that first bucket of costs is aggregated and divided by the aggregated load to get a zonal rate, and that rate is charged to every kilowatt transaction in the zone to collect the costs from folks using the joint transmission system.
Okay, yep, that answers the question, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions?
Your electric utility.
Okay,
Did you know your electric?
it doesn't look like
utility
there's any
debt?
more questions, Ron.
Excellent. I'll drop off. If there's any follow-up questions, we'll address them at that time.
Okay, yeah, don't forget to go in and make us host again.
All right, well, thank you very much.
All right.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay, moving on to item 4 would be a motion to close the annual update meeting.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Sheldon, aye.
Michelle, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Hammer, aye.
Cyber aye.
Okay, on to our regular board meeting. Item number 1 is to call the meeting to order. Item 2 is the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Roll call.
Sheldon, aye.
Michelle, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Hammer, aye.
Cyber aye.
And item number 3 is the approval of the consent agenda. It includes the minutes of the April 27th board meeting, the abstract of claims number 1235 in the amount of $666,263, and the upcoming board meetings, May 25th will be electronic, June 8th will be a regular board meeting, this is backwards from normal, and June 22nd will be an electronic.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Sheldon, aye.
Michelle, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Hammer, aye.
Cyber aye.
Okay. Item 4 is the comprehensive emissions service contract, testing for the NESHAP CZZZ requirements in the amount of $3,500 excluding tax.
This is for exhaust stack testing for emissions on one of our 2 generators down at the old facility, the ones that are in the trailers. And like I said, it only applies to the one. Testing is required every 5 years. The other generator doesn't have an updated exhaust, so that is only to be used in emergencies. So this would be testing just on that emissions for the one.
Okay.
I don't know, any questions on that?
This just comes up every 5 years. We've done it in the past. Does the
Correct.
price point seem comparable to previous?
I believe it's the same as it was 2 years ago.
Okay.
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Sheldon, aye.
Michelle, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Hammer, aye.
Cyber aye.
Okay. Item number 5 is the raw water system improvements, section 1, the raw water mains and electric and fiber conduit, section 2, the well drilling, section 3, site work, well houses, equipment and miscellaneous well connections, and section 4, electrical and fiber wiring. Joe, talk to us.
Yeah, section A there, A and B, I guess, consideration of construction bids and resolution making award of construction contract. I think we had that, everybody had seen that bid tab where we just received one bid from McCarthy Trenching. We did have a water committee meeting discussing that bid, the bid results. And I know either David or Doug could speak to it. I guess the options we had were to try to go back, reject that bid and go back and rebid. We did talk to our bond attorney. Another option we looked at was Section 4 seemed to be the outlier as far as more expensive than what the engineer estimate was. But the way that was set up to bid the first time, or that time, there's no way for us, I mean, it wasn't, bond attorney told us that we could not go back and actually accept 1, 2, and 3 and rebid 4. We would have to reject everything, go back and rebid everything. Then at that point, you know, maybe we could have separated out Section 4. I guess we had some discussion at the committee meeting is, you know, there's no guarantees. We go back out to bid. Could maybe not, you know, would McCarthy Trenching bid again? Would we pick up any other bidders? Another thing we thought about too was, you know, our price is gonna just keep going up too on materials and on the bid itself.
From my position on the committee, we talked about all these things, and of course, the idea of saving money is always there, but when you're rebidding, you're pushing it back to, we were talking in December.
Yeah, ideally, yeah.
Based on everything that I can read, I don't see any economic indicator that suggests that the price point's gonna come down. If we were to get additional people to bid it, that would be great, but we didn't this time around. There's no guarantees we would, and what we would certainly do is delay the start of the project, which this is, you know, a project that we find fairly important if we want to stay out of water watches in the future. And as much as I like to save money, I believe in this particular case we have to think about, I think it's a gamble that we can't take. I think we're better off to take the bid as it is and make sure that we get the work done. I think it's that important. So that's my take on it. Doug, did you have a?
I think you and I are pretty much in agreement that this is a project that just has to proceed in my mind. I don't know, yes, there's a cost consideration, but there's also a time factor involved in here too. I don't know that waiting any longer is going to provide the benefits we prefer to see when this project needs to proceed, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I don't think anybody was discussing, or I wasn't concerned with waiting. What my concern with, in the email that I'd sent out, was I just wanted to make sure that we had addressed item 4, or section 4. The first question was, what's the status on the $500,000 grant application? Or what is the status on that?
We've accepted it. I mean, as far as, I'd have to get a little more information as far as being able to get some reimbursement for the electrical equipment that we've pre-purchased. You know, I think that would be something that we could go back and get a reimbursement on that grant.
Yeah, so I think there's, it's roughly $1 million that we're over in section 4. So there's the $500K grant. And then the other piece I would ask is what, we've already bought ahead as it relates to $300K for this project out of an electrical utility, is that correct or no? So have we gone back in and looked at section 4 specifically and addressed whether or not there are other things in there that could be applied to the electric utility before we go and try to do an inter-utility loan from water to electric, or however we're gonna do that? That would be my 2 requests, would be basically, let's use the $500K effectively, maybe against section 4, and is there something else that we can go in and, whether it's high watt or, you know, high voltage or whatever within that section. I'm not suggesting we delay or go back out and rebid or recompete, or I just say, let's use the money that we have effectively, so it doesn't end up being a burden to the water department as they try to get themselves upright and continue to operate in the black. And those are my 2 thoughts.
And you're talking on there, Jim, as far as that high voltage stuff, I mean, that would become ownership of the electric instead of that being part of the water project?
I would suspect that eventually the electric department would be responsible for high voltage within the utility writ large, not the water department paying for, you know, the water department doesn't pay or fund maintenance on high voltage to the current pump house, does it? So why would, it's just, I would we don't need to make the sandwich today, but I would just suggest that if we could bite away at that $1 million in section 4, then it would be, in my opinion, it would be less burdensome to the water utility and perhaps take advantage of an asset the utility has. Those are my thoughts.
And I know John Burmeister's on too, you know, with PFM, and John has been working with Donald and I, actually utilizing that total bid and working out, you know, I guess future rate increases to be able to work this through, so.
Yeah, our default cannot be rate increases.
Sure.
We have to work as hard as we can to not, that should be almost other than going out and recompeting, the next last thing should be rate increases. We should be trying to.
Yeah, and what we got, and I don't know if we talked about that before, Jim, we're looking at under the inspection on the project. We're looking at trying to do quite a bit of that in-house that we can, which should be, I mean, I guess I hate to throw a number out there, but, you know, we're hoping.
Or if you have some, you know, say, $100,000 savings on
Yeah,
us doing.
75, you know, if we could on certain portions of the project, working with McClure on that. And then the other thing is too, there is a possibility, some value engineering, once we're under contract with McCarthy Trenching to possibly see some savings in the project as far as how it was constructed. There again, we gotta kind of watch that whole thing, that there isn't a scope change, you know, because then that gets us in, you know, we got to be careful that we don't change the scope by a certain amount in that value engineering. But that's a possibility too, to try to save there, which then in fact should help us with the rates down the road. I don't know if that answers.
But I guess right now on item number 5, you're looking for us to approve the bid so that we can get this process going, right?
Correct. McClure would then turn around and send out contracts to McCarthy to get his portion going, so that if we can keep moving, we could then approve that contract at the June meeting, June 8th.
Yeah, so just clarification. We don't have right now the funding to pay for the bid as it exists right now, or do we?
We do with that inter-utility loan.
Right, so the first step should be to create the revenue to pay the bid, which is, the first step should be, do we or do we not want to do an inter-utility loan? Once we have approved the funding, then I think the step is to approve the bid. I would be reluctant to approve a bid when we do not have the funding right now to pay for this. We have not approved it as a board.
Well, we had the resolution where we approved up to 1.5,
That was approved at the meeting.
yeah, 1.536 is what we approved, that resolution, and then the city also took the steps of, because the city's got the final approval on that, so they went ahead and preliminarily approved the same amount.
I believe that was the April.
Yes.
The April meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So that resolution is already passed.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, my mistake.
Yep.
So it's in place already so that we can approve this contract.
Correct.
But we
And we
don't,
approved that, you know, that number, I mean, I guess we had enough play in that to where we approved the 1.536. And I think our overage is,
1.2 and change.
yeah, 1.2 is actually what we're gonna have to need, or use.
Potentially need.
Potentially.
The cost savings.
Correct.
Yeah, that must have been the March meeting because the April minutes don't reflect that.
Yep, March 23rd, sorry. Is what it has on the resolution.
well,
Mr. Chair, what do you need for a motion?
Well, we need a motion to, starting with the section A, the designating the low bidder
As McCarthy.
as McCarthy.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Sheldon, aye.
Michelle, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Hammer, aye.
Seibert, aye.
And then section B is the resolution making award of construction contract.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Sheldon, aye.
Michelle, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Hammer, aye.
Seibert, aye.
Okay, on to item number 6, the $5.364 million water revenue capital loan notes anticipation project note, series 2023. This will be approval of the tax exemption certificate and resolution authorizing the issuance.
Yeah, and that's fairly straightforward. It's just to certify, certificate to recognize that the owner of the bonds, HMU, has tax exempt status, and then allowing the issuance of the bonds.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Sheldon, aye.
Michelle, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Hammer, aye.
Seibert, aye.
And item number 7 is the water revenue capital loan notes anticipation project note, series 2023. Item A is the interim loan disbursement agreement.
Yeah.
You can do those with one motion.
Okay, and the purchase agreement is item B.
And that is the issuance of bonds to the Shelby County State Bank. You know, they were acting as the, I don't know if I want to say the host between them, Mid-States, and Farmers Trust as far as providing the interim loan during construction.
Because the three banks got together and
Correct.
created this, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That was that grid we reviewed that one time that showed terms and conditions in the notes and things like that, correct?
Correct.
I'll make that motion for 7A and B to be consolidated into one.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Sheldon, aye.
Michelle, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Hammer, aye.
Seibert, aye.
And item number 8 is the water revenue capital loan notes anticipation project note, series 2023. Can these be all together?
All together,
All
yeah.
together. We
They're
have
just the standard bonding documents. that
A is
we
the
have.
delivery certificate, B is the transcript certificate, C is the 8038G tax exempt government bonds, and D is the bank qualification certificate.
Yeah, and as Jenny mentioned, just additional required bonding documentation per the bonding attorney.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
And roll call?
Sheldon, aye.
Michelle, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Hammer, aye.
Seibert, aye.
Okay, I believe that is all of that.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, item 9 is a retainer agreement with...
Mr. Chair, may I?
Oh,
What do you expect now that we have made these motions and everything and kind of signed off on? What do we expect on construction? What's realistic?
Well, if we approve the contract, I mean, contractor should have plenty of time, and Gary could step in if, you know, if he needs to, but, you know, I thought discussing that with McClure, that I would give McCarthy plenty of time between now and the June 8th meeting to be able to get his performance payment bonds together, certificate of insurance, and get that back to us for review by a local attorney and review of USDA. So basically, any time after June 8th, then they could potentially set up a pre-construction meeting, you know, that following week or two, and be able to get started if they so desire or ready to.
So if all goes according to plan, we can still put a shovel in the ground this year?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
That's why the June meetings were switched around to get.
Yeah, try to keep it moving. Indication from McCarthy is that he's probably busy through June, so realistically sometime in July, unless weather slows him down on projects he's on. The last, I talked to Evan McCarthy is, you know, first part of July, July 5th or 6th or whatever, you know, after the 4th is when he would be possibly ready to start.
Thank you.
Okay, back to number 9, retainer agreement with Napoli. I'm not even going to attempt to.
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
Anyway, with them, PLLC, in regard to the per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFASs.
Yep, referred to as PFASs, in which that is just, they call them forever chemicals. And it's a chemical that, I guess, maybe that we would know it was derived from use of firefighting foams. And basically, this would be able to, joining the lawsuit to where manufacturers of these forever chemicals, to have them pay for improvements to the water system and/or install new wells if there happens to be a well that has a hit with the PFAS chemicals. And then, actually, this is done at no cost to HMU. They will, I guess their end of it is, if they get a settlement, you know, they're gonna request 25% of that settlement, and then the rest would be distributed out to members of the lawsuit. So it's kind of a win-win. I mean, we got information from our Iowa Rural Water Association, and they recommended that we would, you know, it'd be beneficial for us to join that.
Do we have any anticipation that we might have issues?
We had a well, DNR come in and sampling here about a year and a half ago, and one of our wells took a hit for the PFAS.
Okay.
So that's why we were recommended to get on with this lawsuit, because now we are doing source entry monitoring that for all the water that goes into our systems, which does not contain any PFAS. We've got the RO system in place, which takes care of it. But at the end, if we were to have to abandon a well, these funds could be used to move that well into a different location that wasn't contaminated.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, as far as our treated supply is safe, like Donald
Right.
mentioned,
We understand.
one of the treatments for that is an RO system, so I mean, we're fortunate in that process that we have an RO unit in place.
But there's no cost for this?
Nope. Like I said, they just take their 25% or whatever off the top, and then that remaining 75% then I assume would be distributed amongst.
I make a motion to sign the retainer agreement.
And just authorize Joe to sign it because they made the contract with his signature.
Okay.
I make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Sheldon, aye.
Michelle, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Hammer, aye.
Seibert, aye.
Ribbon Network phone switch support contract renewal in the amount of $23,000.
Yeah, this is just annual support for our phone switch. And I think the number's close to last year's, right, Ian?
Yeah, it's $1,000 more than last year, so they provide us with 365, 24/7 support, plus software updates, hardware replacements, the whole complete support package.
And this is a budgeted item.
But I mean, it's something that you expect every year, correct, Ian?
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
we
I mean,
renew it every year and we use them quite often.
And it's in your maintenance?
Yeah, well, we've had, a couple core modules have gone bad, so.
Okay, but this contract is in your budget. This contract is in your budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is every year.
And this is strictly telephone support switch.
Pardon?
Strictly telephone support switch. Telephone switch support.
Correct, it's our Ribbon C15 phone switch
Thank you.
and associated equipment.
I'll make the motion to accept and approve.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Sheldon, aye.
Michelle, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Hammer, aye.
Seibert, aye.
Okay, item number 11 is information only. We have a McClure bill in the amount of $18,630, which,
This is just the progress billing for engineering services on the raw water system improvement project.
okay. And B is the treasurer's report for April at the June meeting.
Yeah, and the reason is since we flipped, meetings here, April won't be closed out quite yet. So April's gonna have to be presented in June, and then the May one would have to be presented in July, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And I guess on to 12 then?
On to 12, it's your,
Yep.
Okay. Just have a few things. If you notice, we finished planting trees around the office and the water plant this week. We had the ones that we moved from the well field, and then we had about 5 more that we purchased, just smaller saplings to kind of fill in since we couldn't get the other 5 from the well field since they're too large. So we got those planted, and then also north of the chemical building for the water plant, we did plant 2 maples there, which we actually got free from the Shelby County Plant Iowa Committee. So. And then item B, David Swank passed his year 3 Module C written test this week. And then he will complete his hands-on portion later this month, so he's progressing well through the apprentice and for electrical. Electric department has installed a transformer for the new scooters location up there. That's in place. They got that done this week. Water department will have to install a new water service, but waiting for site grading to be completed up there before we get that service in for scooters. They're looking at I think it's in an August 1st or something like that, opening for scooters there, just north of Pizza Hut. On that same note, electric, water, and also boring a conduit for telecom will be installed to the property line for the new Dollar General out there on Cyclone and Highway 59. Probably looking at doing that the next couple weeks, is what they're thinking. Then the other one would be a new gas service, which will also be installed out there up to the building, once they get that building erected and kind of get their grading done. Same thing out there, I think Dollar General is looking at trying to be open August 1st also, right? Is that what we're thinking? Okay, and then last thing here, or one of the last things, we received the final report from Cahoy Pumping Services for that maintenance that we had completed here a couple weeks ago on the wells, 8 of the existing wells. Report shows that we got an increase of 144 gallon a minute to the treatment plant and a significant improvement in the well specific capacity, with that work. So I mean, we saw some pretty good improvement. Showing
How many gallons per minute?
144 gallons per minute.
At the well.
At the plant.
At the plant, which is more at the well, so.
Yeah. So trying to keep us, like I said, out of water conservation, at least working towards that. Last I have is some May anniversaries. Eric Rose, 8 years, and Kevin Beeson, 27 years.
We give them a watch or a truck, what do we give them when they got 30?
An attaboy?
An attaboy.
Yeah. No.
They do get recognition on milestone anniversaries,
Right.
like 10, 15, 20, 25.
Yeah. But no, good news, like I said, got some longevity. For sure. We must be doing something right? I don't know, you got anything for me?
Anything from, well, we are adjourned.